Hey, we're back. Did you miss us? Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 282 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. Ryan, Adam, and Trey here with you this evening, back for our first show in almost exactly 2 months. Last time you heard from any of us here was our big 8-hour Free Agent Frenzy live show on, I believe, February 11th. And since then, we've gone into hibernation, and, winter might finally be over, at least the fifth version of it this year. Maybe this is the last snowfall. We'll see. But nonetheless, CFL season kicks off. The preseason and training camps kick off next month, and we're getting pretty close to the draft coming up later this month. And we figure maybe it's time to, dig up the microphones a little bit and come back, chat a little bit of CFL football. Let's bring in the rest of the crew here. Adam, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing good. Yeah, missed a whole pile of things for the last 2 months. I mean, we they had the cow started calving and they didn't stop calving. Then we went and finished up with the Buffs and hit the ground running now, I guess. So yeah, it's been interesting for the last 2 months. I'm seeing if Trey gets the reference, but he didn't probably. So yeah, no, been good. Lots of stuff going on, of course, in the CFL. Well, quite a bit of stuff, anyways. We got 2 months to catch up on stuff. Trey, what you been doing for 2 months?
Absolutely nothing, man. Not really a lot. Just chilling. Yeah. The only football I've been writing for the Alternative Football Network for the Birmingham Stallions. So I could talk 30 minutes about that. There's some bum that they play as quarterback. I'm not sure why, but anyway.
Why do you always pick the teams where you hate the quarterback?
I don't know, man. I didn't even know this guy was on the roster. I couldn't see it, and then game one starter, and I'm like, what is this? We could talk about that. That league is interesting. It's not a lot of scoring. The kicker has been kind of the MVP of most couple teams this year, and I just find it interesting. But pretty excited to talk about real football, and that's 3-down football. So let's go.
Yes,
Birmingham just couldn't get a new name, and they decided that they wanted to steal Baltimore's name. Or
that's why I took the Stallions. I thought the Horsies were nice, So then, and then literally just so I could have a donkey of the game. That was literally the only reason. Stud and donkey of the game.
Trey's always going to pick the Horsies unless it's Calgary. Yes. But
exactly.
For myself as well, the last 2 months, I say this every year, planning the big Free Agent Frenzy live show is a month straight of chaos. And then after that, I'm truthfully so burned out on the CFL stuff and the prep work for the podcast that the past 2 months has been a nice break. And it gives us a chance to chill and rest and then come back and have some fun talking football throughout the rest of the offseason, get into preseason, then CFL season. So that's what we're here to do today. We'll touch on some of the major items over the last couple of months, such as the new CFL commissioner, Ed Hervey's controversial comments about superstars or lack thereof in the CFL. We'll talk about the BC Lions going way over the cap and weird cap rules with draft picks. And then we'll talk about the success or, lack thereof of first-round draft picks over the past decade, which is a hot topic supposedly around the league these days with the draft taking place in just over 2 weeks' time. We'll also take your comments and questions in our live chat throughout the evening if you're joining us on our YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch feeds, and that's all made possible by our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. Learn more at GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. We also want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Check out our Discord community as well. Not a whole ton going on in there these days, but every once in a while there's some CFL chatter going on there. I'm sure that will pick up as the season goes along. Everybody who is not a bot is welcome to join us there because I'm sick of banning them in the last couple of days. Link is in the episode description. It's free to join us over there in the CFC Discord to join the community and chat up with us and other CFL fans in between. And that's all the news and notes and housekeeping off the top of the show. I did it, guys. Shook off the rust and we got through it. Now we got to do the actual show.
Yeah.
I mean, we could call that good enough, couldn't we?
Yeah.
We went through it.
That was pretty good. Yeah, well, congratulations all. We'll send out the awards and handshakes and we're done. Yeah, okay.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, crushed it. No, we got some stuff to talk about. One of the big hot topics ever since November with the CFL has been who's the commissioner going to be after it was announced that Randy Ambrosie was stepping down. I think it was stepping down. You could argue maybe it was a forced stepping down from the Board of Governors. I feel like there could be some discussion there, but just I believe last week the CFL announced a new commissioner, and it is one Stuart Johnston, who, if you've never heard the name before, was previously the president of TSN, the CFL's official broadcast partner. Your guys' initial thoughts on the new commissioner of the CFL? Let's go to you first, Trey.
Interesting. Went with the businessman, TV media personnel kind of way, and I don't think that's terrible. I'm really interested in what kind of TV deals come from that. If the guys, it would have been interesting if they hired the former president of Sportsnet. That would have been, maybe something crazy. But TSN, it looks like maybe TSN is going to be the long-term rights holder of the CFL, and I just hope that maybe this means that TSN will do it better. Adam?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know what TSN's motivation is right now to make anything better, to be honest with you on it. Just because if you look, Sportsnet just signed a huge deal with the NHL for 12 years and so many millions of dollars or billions of dollars, I can't remember which one it was, to make a deal happen so that they can keep the NHL for a very long time. First things first, TSN, give back the old NHL or CBC theme song. Give it back to CBC and Sportsnet. You don't want it. You don't clearly use it. So, give it back to them. That's just not being nice. Anyways, getting back to topic, though. Stuart, I think will be a good leader. Yes, I'm going to screw that one up millions of times. Just so
there's no Jack in there at all. It is Stuart Johnston.
Johnston. Yeah, okay. I honestly, it's been a whirlwind. Looks like a decent guy. I mean, he's got maybe some good marketing background. I hope he does, anyways. I don't want to see this just being a one-way deal. That TSN's the only one that's really going to be interested. Maybe they are the only one that's interested in what do you call Canadian football. But I think there's still a market, although right now, with how things are between the Canada and the US, it'd be very interesting to see how they can actually work that market a little bit. You know what? Very interesting time for the CFL. It seems like there's a lot of people that know this guy, Johnson, that says he is a really good guy and a good pick for this job. So, again, his first priority is always to go and do what the owner's wishes are. Essentially, he's working for the owners. And as fans, we got to remember that part. He's not here for us, sort of, but he's there to make the owners money. So if he does that and is successful at it, that usually means the CFL is pretty successful. So let's hope that Johnson does a really good job of it. Although, again, my first choice was Arash Madani. So, yeah.
Oh, 100%. 1,000%. Well, after Rod Peterson.
Or Trey Colbeck.
Oh, 100%. But
wow. You choose Trey over me. I see how it is.
Hey, he's the one that auditioned the hardest.
That's true. We did talk about early in the off season that we were going to have the great debate between Trey and I for commissioner of the CFL. We can't really do that now because there is a new commissioner of the CFL. We really dropped the ball on those off season plans, but one of the big things that I would have included in my platform was like, for the CFL, I think the big focus in the digital media age that we are in now has to be I think that streaming deal with TSN closes 2026, 2027. Like it's coming up soon. And what does the future look like in a more heavy streaming world, a less of a cable focused world? And so somebody who is kind of from a media company like Stuart Johnston with TSN, I think is a good fit for the style of commissioner that the CFL needs to lead it into its next stage. They've had different styles of all kinds, right? They've had businessmen, they've had, Ambrosi was a former player who helped them navigate through some things, I think, from the player's perspective as well. Kind of want a guy that can cover all of it. Obviously, there's no past playing experience to my knowledge from the new guy here, but he is, he has been a longtime fan of the league. He's got that media background. He's got that business background. I think those are good fits. I do have some of the same concerns, though, that I think you guys just talked about, which is, TSN for life now for the CFL is essentially what I'm expecting. And, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years of complacency with the product and not advertising it as much as it should for a platform where, they've got 5 different channels, and I know some of them are geo-locked, but, they don't have a ton of hockey. They don't have a ton of, some of these other sports. Yeah, they get a lot of NFL and stuff, but I feel like you often could easily have so much more coverage of the CFL or games replaying weekly, and you will have the market of people probably watching them more than they would on their typical TSN2 shows, which are just the filler shows half of the time. So, I'm hoping that maybe this having him in here on the league side might help the relationship a little to kind of emphasize them to put more effort in, but it's really makes it hard to see any room for competition, which could lead to even more complacency than they already have.
No, I agree. I think that TSN, you're right. They don't have the MLB deal. That's obviously Sportsnet. They don't have the NHL deal. They have they have some of the NFL. I mean, that's their big one when they get to September. Between CTV and TSN, they do have quite a bit of the NFL. NBA, they split. I think with the NBA, don't they?
They're split with the. Okay, so they do have MLB, just not Raptors. They have Monday night or Wednesday night baseball. They have half the Raptors contract, and I think they do play other NBA. No, Sportsnet might play the other NBA. And then, Jays are all in NBA. Hockey's going to live on NBA. UFC moved to Sportsnet. Horse racing's moved to Sportsnet. I don't know what TSN has now except for lumberjack competitions, the Scotties and the Briar and CFL and NFL. They're kind of losing. I guess they might have the Masters this weekend. Good job. You can watch grass grow for 4 days.
Saskatchewan senior hockey. Maybe they want that.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Maybe lacrosse is on TSN, but I think that it drives me up the wall, the whole 5 TSN things, and sure, the geography, but man, they're doing it perfectly great right now for the Masters. You can have one channel has, certain holes, different channels have featured ones, another channel's like a free range thing. You're utilizing it, but how do you utilize 5 TSNs when there's one game on at a time?
Yeah.
I guess, but
yeah.
Now, I will give them credit that one of the coolest new things the league did this year was that enhanced stats feed on the on TSN Plus?
Yeah.
Online, I think, which that's the kind of bonus online content you want to see. So if that's, something they can continue to build off of with this new person in place who kind of led the initiative or was at the top of the chain when they implemented that, that gives me a little bit of a promise. But that's really the main thing I'm watching from this league over the next couple of years is what's the long-term plan for a league that's always been considered gate driven. I think gate-driven activities are going down, especially, as prices of everything increases. And we're not a political podcast, but, the economic state of the world is in quite a flux these days with everything going on. Trying to afford tickets is tough for people in many markets. And so when the gate-driven nature comes down, potentially, what are you doing to get that streaming nature up or getting to that business across different countries? Besides the streaming stuff, though, what else do you guys think? What's high priority for the new commish coming in?
Well, before we get to the new commissioner and what his priorities maybe should be, let's do a quick review, though. And what was our thoughts of Randy Ambrosie overall as a commissioner? Is he going to be considered a success, or was he considered a failure because of the Genius stuff? Was he considered a success maybe because of bringing in other things that maybe, again, you said like the data enhanced feeds and maybe some more driven analytics? But then he'll be remembered also for CFL 2.0. What was the thoughts in the end? And what's the overall report card for Randy Ambrosie before we get into the new commissioner?
I got to give him a pass, and for the biggest part, not like huge success, but I'm gonna do the same thing as I would say to many politicians. He had to navigate COVID-19, man. Like nobody had a playbook for that. You can complain about things being locked down, this or that, vaccines, whatever. The dude, like many people in those situations, had an impossible job, and his was even harder than Goodell, Bettman's, because you can't play these games without fans, right? Like it's not like you can't do a CFL bubble, even though they kind of talked about it. You can't have the games at stadiums without fans. So he did all he could, and I think a lot of people are going to maybe look at it as a failure in the future when you see a missed season and a half, when you see the fail of 2.0. But 2.0 was working okay until, again, global pandemic. You know, it had its plus moments. Who knows what the 10th team would have been if it wasn't, again, global pandemic. You know, I don't want to blame everything on that, but geez, man, like, dude got dealt an impossible hand, and the fact that he made it out with a little bit of hair on his head still, and it wasn't completely white, I give him full credit. And I think that, again, yeah, maybe he's going to get the short end of the stick with a lot of fans, but I think that, you know, he was no Commish Cohen, but he was better than Aldridge or whatever, you know. So I'll give him a pass. Ryan.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, grade C plus. So that kind of similar to what Trey is saying. I think his negatives will be forever magnified greater than any of his successes. But I think he did have some successes along the way. You know, we talk about the negatives. Yeah, we're going to talk about the lost season due to COVID. We're going to talk about what they do. They went to the government with asking for a grant of like a massive amount of money with no real plan to do with it. Like that didn't seem like well prepared to approach that lost season. We can talk about the whole CBA negotiation and the delay to the start of the season. That was part of that. We can talk about the whole Genius Sports deal. We can talk about CFL 2.0. Like, yeah, these were all failures under the Randy Ambrosie leadership. Now, is he solely at fault for all of them? No. Yeah, the commissioner is no more than the scapegoat of the ownership circle, right? He's the guy out there that's probably in most cases handed the paper by the board of governors and said, go announce this to the media and tell them that we're going to have to delay the season because we don't have a deal with the players. Like, it's not just him making these negotiations. Surely he's just the face of the franchise. And, you know, you could argue as a leader, he should have stepped in maybe more in some of these situations, but I do think there are positives. Like, I think the CFL over the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic, to me, has never been stronger. You're seeing attendance increases from some of these markets like BC that, you know, have historically had attendance issues. You've seen new ownership groups put into place in places. You've seen increased TV viewership. I think they tweaked some of the rules a little bit to get more offensive scoring in there, and that ended up working out pretty well for them as well. The numbers this year of just games that were decided in the final 3 minutes, like the CFL has the perk of such an entertaining product with the way it's built. It just comes down to marketing for the league. And so I think there are still positives out of what Ambrosie did in his time. They're just more subtle positives that people don't give him the credit for. Adam?
Yeah, I think right in the end, when you look at the whole thing for Randy Ambrosie, in the end, is the league more stable than it was when he left? BC had a poor ownership when he took over. it was kind of in trouble. Toronto was in big trouble. They couldn't get fans coming out. Is it still an issue? Yeah, a little bit, but they do have stable ownership in there right now. Montreal has stable ownership with it as well. Edmonton now is been having issues ever since they did their reimaging, rebranding. They're starting to kind of recover, and they have a new ownership that seems to be going and starting to turn that team into a different look. So in the end, I think he left the CFL in a stronger place than he did when he took it in 2019, 18, somewhere there, when he took it from Jeffrey Orridge. So did he fail along the way? Oh, yeah. I mean, there was things that failed. Again, we've said them before, 2.0, the Genius Sports deal, the COVID stuff, everything that went on there. But you got to give him credit for trying and doing different things to try to generate and make the league better in the end. So in a way, yes, there were some failures, and people are going to look at that and probably point those out most. But in the end, you're all right. I would give him actually a B+ rating because he did do a lot of things to try to make the CFL a better, more stable product than what it was before. I mean, back in the day, everybody would think, oh, well, the XFL is going to take over the CFL. There was a while there when the CFL was going to take over the XFL. So it was all kind of cool like that. So I think he's done a very good job for the league. I hope Stuart Johnston keeps it going. We'll see what happens here going forward. I guess we'll see him in 2 weeks when he's introducing the number 1 draft pick.
Can I also just say, like, if we look at other leagues, I feel like the good commissioners are hated by the fans. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a running joke. You got to boo Bettman when he comes to town, right? Like, Goodell's up there too. I hate the NBAs and baseball. Nobody's ever liked the baseball commissioner in the history of the MLB. So it's a thankless job. I think, again, as long as you get out of it with the league still playing games and growing in some form, I think it's a win. Again, like, we could look at, some of those leagues we just talked about, UFL, there's some attendance issues right now. And like, they got a good TV deal relatively, but they're getting 10,000 people in a stadium. Man, I mean, you can't give Ambrosi all the credit, but he had a team break a profit record in the Bombers at $7 million under his watch. And that's, again, we were talking about it. It's really him working for the owners. And if he can put the teams in situations to do that, I think that, he did a heck of a job.
Now, going back to my question from before as we move forward, and I'm happy you did bring that topic in there, Adam, about Ambrosi, because we haven't really talked too much about his departure. But going forward now, Stuart Johnston at the helm, besides, what was the number one thing we were talking about, the next media deal and stuff, what's the big focus you're looking for to see from him? The president or prime minister or whatever, they always have like their first 30-day plan or whatever. What's the first year plan for the new commissioner? What does he got to hit?
Well, I think there's two things. First of all, the media deal is probably going to be his legacy. I mean, it's the biggest thing that is the new generator of income for the owners, essentially. If he doesn't hit that on the head, it affects the league immediately. So I would see that being the biggest thing for him. The next one is the gate. I think gates, it's been shown that gates are kind of stagnant, maybe a little up this year. But again, you look at the economy in the area. We've all said this. You just said this a little while ago, Ryan. The economy's not good in any real area right now. Do people have a lot of disposable income to go and buy themselves a season ticket, go and drive in to watch the game in certain places, go and buy supper, do all that kind of? Not really. And I think that's going to affect this Canadian Football League really quite a bit more than other leagues, because other leagues, they got a big TV deal, they don't care. So the gate is going to be a big issue, I think, coming up down the road here. I think there's going to be some more negotiations, I think, with the CFLPA. Obviously, they want to see more money going into the players, and that's going to be a big thing, is trying to keep the CFLPA kind of, I don't want to say grounded, but make sure that players are paid well enough that they keep encouraging them to come up to Canada, which might be a little bit tough with everything going on as well. There's going to be a little bit of challenges even again this year, as I just said. getting a player from Canada to the United States than worrying about how they're going to get paid, what all has to be done there. All that's got to get dealt with, and there's a lot of work to do there. And by the way, you also have to deal with the draft here in about 2 weeks, which again is another thing for fan wise and for player or for owner wise. I'd sure love to see that draft more publicized. Trey, what has he got to work on?
Oh man, I'm gonna sound like a broken record for 2 decades because everything you said was 100% right, Adam. But I bet all that becomes easier and more money with a 10th freaking team, because then you have an extra game to sell. You have it's an extra team, and then there's 5 games a week. That's a lot better to sell. Maybe if you are tempted to sell a little piece off to SportsCenter, CBC, TSN's got, okay, we got 4 games. Do we really want the 5th one? Maybe you can have a 5th one on, you could have the stupid Thursday night or Sportsnet or something, something like that. And go from there, because again, then that, I think the TV deal gets that a little bit bigger, because then the CFL says, no, we got 5 games now. We don't have the stupid team buying every week. Yeah, little things like that. Now, I don't care if it's Halifax, Quebec, Saskatoon, North Dakota, Montana. I don't care. Victoria, I've heard. I don't care where, but I think that 10th team needs to be up at the top, or at least look to see how viable it is. Because if it's not, I think also they need to shut it down at some point and be like, it's not happening. We're gonna have 9,
Yeah.
and then look at other options to make the schedule. I mean, it's pretty as balanced as possible, but make the 9-team league better every way. But if it's any possibility, they got to get it going, and if not, just say it's never going to happen. It's we're not going to make it to this moon, and move on, and then make it as best as possible. But yeah, I think and then after that, again, if you get the 5th team or the 10th team, that TV deal looks nicer. Marketing is a little bit better. Again, you could do, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever you could do. You could stretch it out any way you want. I'm not saying Netflix is going to pay for a game, but what does the Christmas games now? 2 on Netflix and 1 on Amazon for the NFL. Crave is CTV, and Bell. There are some options. I really like the UFC. They have UFC Fight Pass. It's just all UFC. Now, granted, that's thousands and thousands, but you can go back 30 years and watch everything. I mean, it's probably not impossible for the CFL, especially with the TSN as their partner, to make something like that as well, and go from there. I think, yeah, streaming is it. Like, I think if you just, I don't know. I really want to know how hard it is to make. Just say, hey, we want our games on our streaming platform. You charge $9.99 a month or $19.99 a month, and you throw ads in there, and you throw bonus subscriptions, and you put 30 for 30 kind of content on there, and I wonder what kind of market that could be. Probably not, clearly not as much as TSN gives, but must be something you could do.
And I wonder as well, like on the 10th team topic, because that's going to come up forever. Like this will be every commissioner's legacy until there is a 10th team or until they shut it down. And I think what you talked about, getting some kind of transparency like that from the new commissioner is also a huge benefit there as well. But I do wonder, new guy comes in, does he try to go back to Halifax and the Atlantic after the previous crew kind of failed with that, or does he try to go a whole new direction potentially with the some of the other places that you talked about? Have a really hard time seeing them try to expand to the States at this point in time with everything going on. I think that dream might be dead as of right now, but you never know. But my big thing kind of goes hand in hand with the whole streaming and a lot of what you guys have talked about, and that's just marketing of the league. The league has been, I feel like, has been handed a brilliant marketing opportunity on a silver platter this year with the, they used to do the radically Canadian marketing, and everybody is, feeling very patriotic this year for world reasons. And I think, first thing that comes to mind is that, what was it? Not World Cup of Hockey. What was the thing called? The Four Nations Cup. That's the one. Yeah. Four Nations Cup, Canada, US final. Like I don't watch hockey at all anymore. Did I watch that game and was I like amped up throughout the game? Heck yeah. And so was pretty much everybody, right? And they really leaned into, supporting Canada with all of that stuff. And this is Canadian content. We talk about rising prices, we talk about supporting local businesses. And the CFL, I feel like, should be leaning into that as hard as they can. Gets muddied a little bit when 80% of your players are American or something in that range, but they're still Canadian teams. So I want to see marketing campaigns around that. I want to see marketing, just all aspects of the league, not just during the season to really get this in front of people, but throughout the rest of the year. We talked about off the top of the podcast that we really haven't paid much attention over the last 2 months since we did the last show. Like, there's been new bits of news items like this here and there, but truthfully, like, I enjoyed a kind of nice little break from thinking about the CFL for 2 months over the last 2 months. And if the league wants to market itself and keep it fresh in my memory all year long, what are you going to do during these off-season months to keep me invested? As a group here of us that run a podcast, like, clearly we're CFL fans. We, we're very much in the wrong place. And even we're struggling to feel engaged throughout some of these off-season months. So I want to see what the league can do about stuff like that. I know they did the CFL week once or twice, one in Saskatchewan, one in Winnipeg, I think, and those were both fantastic. I would love to see them bring something like that back in some capacity mid-off season to help with the marketing stint as well.
On a side note, I love the comment from Polar Knights. As a barber, I love the show. It's every stage of beard growth. We were laughing about that actually before the podcast. I raced and had to go and shave because, my facial hair ain't pretty. So
I don't show many comments on the screen, but this might be one of the greatest comments we've ever gotten on this show.
Just brilliant. Epic cinema. That's
I saw Adam starting to laugh, and I saw the little one in the comments, and I'm like, great. What did somebody say now? I was not expecting it to be that.
Yeah,
it's great.
Well, I agree with what you're saying too, Ryan. And to be fair, actually, just under 50% of the players are Canadian because you need to have 21 nationals on a 44-man roster.
Okay, well,
it's 48, 49, 7% or whatever. So I get what you're saying, but I do worry about. Still, are you going to alienate the 53% Americans of your roster?
And I'm not saying that's the only marketing campaign, right? But
you saw like what the Chuck brother was getting all mad when they were in Ottawa booing, right? Like when he was playing for the Sens, right? So you got to kind of watch what you do there. And I'm not saying we're going to like boo them, but I mean, I would. But I mean, yeah, it's very interesting. Like the whole balls are bigger thing, go back to that, go back to, the 3 downs and that, there's a guy, is it Tim Hicks that has the song, Stronger Beer, which like, we both got pro football, but, get that going. And, I think that would be good too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you could do something along the lines of unapologetically Canadian or something like that, I mean, it's way too long for a saying, but something along those lines that highlight your.
It would be it's Canadian. It would be apologetically Canadian because we say sorry for everything.
Fair enough. But I mean, we could have our player, like we could have Trey Ford go throw a touchdown and then go and say sorry. Or you could have, Samuel Ennis going catching a touchdown, handing it to the referee and saying sorry. Like you could have some real fun with the Canadian game and the Canadian players that you have. Yes, you've got to be a little sensitive. I know there's Americans too that play in the league, and there's some really good American players. That being said, they're still in Canada. You're in Canada.
Yeah, most of them probably are unofficially Canadian, right? Like Henry Burris was trying to get his citizenship forever. A lot of them live here. Their kids are here. Even just market the heck out of this is our league. That was great when they had that video and just showing that like, this is ours. Like, and that's one thing I never understood about solely NFL people is I don't care. Like, sure, I'll play fantasy and do betting, but I don't care if the Bills win. I don't care if Eagles win. I'm not a big hockey fan, but I can't wait for a whiteout party and just to see the team, see what the Jets can do. I don't go to every Gold Eyes game, but it's nice to hear when they win. It's the team in your backyard, so go cheer for them. And I think right now, yeah, with everything going on in the 11th province down there, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm allowed to. I'm on AFN. I gotta piss off all the Americans as much as I can in over the next 10 weeks.
And one of the, the CFL did have a cool campaign this year with the Keep It Unreal campaign that I think they kicked off, like more fun stuff like that. And speaking of campaigns potentially served up on a silver platter for them, I think another one that was served up was by one of their general managers earlier this offseason a couple of months ago, when Ed Hervey, talking about Gino Lewis, former Edmonton Elk, who's now gone off to, I believe, the Ottawa Red Blacks, if I remember correctly, basically saying that Hervey doesn't believe there are any superstars in the CFL, and this took the offseason media by storm. Fan outrage. The CFLPA asked for a public apology and retraction of his comments on it, saying that, there are no superstars in the CFL. This is one of those things where the league should just spin this into, hey, here's our superstar, superstar of the week, so-and-so, like stuff like that would be an easy thing to play off of that. But I'm interested to know your guys' takes on Hervey's initial comment, and he has supposedly kind of clarified after he got called out on it that he was talking about he considers superstars to be guys like Michael Jordan, and there's nobody like that. I was like, well, you might want to read the dictionary definition of superstars potentially if that's the only type of player you consider.
Well, here's my thing on it. I look at superstar as a guy that's outstanding or just out of his mind in a league. He's right. I mean, in the NHL, it's Ovechkin and Crosby and McKinnon and McDavid. In the NBA or in the Major League Baseballs, it's Shohei Ohtani. It's those kind of guys. In the CFL, though, we've got superstars. Anthony Calvillo would be one that I could tell you right off the bat. We've got Damon Allen, who is always a guy that you could always know that name and you'd recognize him as a Canadian. Doug Flutie, of course. I don't think Dwayne Johnson counts, but he was a guy that was recognized later on in the CFL. But you know what? There's other ones. Warren Moon was a big one. Even today, if you go and you say the name Bo Levi Mitchell, he's pretty much a superstar in this league. As much as you like him or hate him, he's a guy that everybody recognizes instantly. Trevor Harris or even Zach Collaros. As much as I know Trey's going to go and cringe, he's a guy that's known, and everybody knows what he is. He's a Canadian football player, right? You go down to the NFL, if you say Zach Collaros, they're going to say, oh, Travis Kelce's, what do you call him?
Former quarterback.
But they're going to say right afterwards, he's a really well-known Canadian football guy. And there's all sorts of those all over the place. Nathan Rourke is another one that's on the verge of becoming maybe that superstar, right? And these guys are great in their community. They're great on the field, and they're well-known. That's the big thing. And there's lots of superstars. I just don't know what Aaron Hervey's doing, trying to go and stir things up because he was in sour grapes about losing one of his best receivers. Right?
No, I agree. Comparing Jordan is the GOAT. That's the next level above superstar, right? He is it. He's the Tiger Woods. He's the Wayne Gretzky. He's the whoever you want to put up there. Sure. I can't. The CFL is a weird league. It's hard to give it the GOAT like Tom Brady or something in the NFL. But yes, we have superstars. We have that next little, like again, that normal big tier that everyone gets to. Who? Why would we name a road after Stiegel if he wasn't a superstar? You know what I mean? Why would we? Why would we? You're right. Half the guys you said, like, they're superstars. They do things in their community. They do things that Ed Hervey probably can't even can't even imagine doing on the field anymore. So they're superstars. Sure, I could agree that there's no Michael Jordan, but that's just the makeup of the league, because the CFL seems to be one of those leagues where most guys only play 3 or 4 or 5 years. There's, they move around a lot. It's harder to be the GOAT. And football's a harder sport to be the GOAT, because Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, but he's not the greatest football player. He's not athletic compared to Tyreek Hill or OBJ and all these other guys. So it's kind of hard to compare a O lineman and a receiver and a quarterback the same way you can compare hockey players or basketball players or even baseball players. But yeah, there's superstars everywhere. Heck, we have superstar coaches. We got Mike O'Shea. You have Pinballs in the office, and he's a superstar. You got superstar podcasters and Ryan, Adam, and Trey every Wednesdays or Thursdays this season.
Except for 2 months of the off season,
right? Except for because they can't pay our superstar quality all 12 months. But yeah, that superstar comment. Unless he was, unless I can give it to him, there's no Jordan in the CFL, but yeah, there's tons of superstars.
The Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of superstar, I pulled it up. A star, as in sports or the movies, who is considered extremely talented, has great public appeal, and can usually command a high salary. And I would say all of that is relative. And you know what? The commanding a high salary, that's maybe where this underlies with Ed Hervey's comments. Granted, I highly doubt that he pulled open his dictionary before making this comment. Oh yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. No, that probably did not happen. But when he's talking about Geno Lewis versus some of the other receivers and paying $300,000 versus paying less for other guys, I can see some merit to that, where I think there's a lot of star players in the CFL, but there aren't too many that stand out extremely above the rest. And I would put those as superstar players. Sure, they're highly talented players. Relative to the average salary in the CFL, they deserve more money. They should command a high salary, and they have great public appeal. They're fantastic characters in the CFL as well. We talk about a guy like Willie Jefferson and his theatrics on the field and the public appeal. I mean, it would be interesting debate. Is Chris Streveler a superstar based on the public appeal he has in Winnipeg, right? As a backup quarterback? I can see to some perspective where, I can see validity in his comment at face value without kind of knowing what he was talking about, in terms of I think even last year we were talking about when we were doing end of season awards or trying to rank the players preseason, where it was it's really hard to rank some of these guys because, we have 9 starting quarterbacks, and we put a lot of them at kind of the equal level, and no one, tremendously above the other necessarily. I also think this was just wildly blown out of proportion to the point that we're talking about this being detrimental to the league and needing an official apology asked for by the CFLPA for damage to the league. If anything, this did good to the league. A comment by Ed Hervey is not going to change the perception by the average non-fan in Canada, US, or around the world who thinks that the CFL is a lesser league. That comment is not going to change anything like that. And if anything, it got us talking about the CFL in March. And it kind of put this chip on the shoulder of everybody advocating for, no, look at this star player, look at this star player. And the players maybe, prove themselves a little more that they are the superstar player. To me, everybody viewed this as a negative for the league. I thought it was a win, to be honest. Ed Hervey maybe should have been the new commissioner of the CFL. He's doing great things for the league.
I'll agree to an extent, but again, I just didn't like the way that he described it and the way he maybe worded it. And especially when you're taking a shot at I'm not saying completely just absolute full shoot at Eugene Lewis, but where the underlying is. He's upset. He was upset because he lost one of his, main guys, main players, main receivers, and lost him to free agency. So the undertones of it is I'm upset. The meaning of there's no superstars in the league, I don't think he really meant that there's nobody that's great. But you're right. He got people talking. He got people thinking about the CFL in March, which is a tough thing to do at any day or any time. But that being said, the one way I could see maybe that he was thinking of it is there anybody with any records right now in the CFL? Like, real hard to get records. Like, again, we just seen the goal record in the NHL being broken. There's nobody with yardage records in the CFL right now that are even comparable to anybody in all-time football yardage. We had Anthony Calvillo that had that award. We had total touchdowns at one time. All that kind of thing. And there's nobody in our leagues that own any of those real big main records or even close to getting to that.
Not those ones, but I'll argue there are some we have seen, like last year, the year before. Didn't Oliveira have like the third highest like rushing total of a Canadian running back ever? And that's not the official record, right? But that's still over the 100-year history of the league. Like, was the best, arguably, Canadian running back. Doesn't Bo Levi Mitchell have the best winning percentage, I think, as a quarterback in CFL history or something like that?
But what I'm getting at, Ryan, is in CFL history.
Right?
Yeah. In football history, there's really not many that are comparing to that. Like, Calvillo does have the yardage record, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for all time in football records. So he should be considered a GOAT, in all honesty. But otherwise, there's not really anybody in the CFL that's even in that competition right now, right? I mean, for receiving touchdowns or for like per career, that it's even close. So, I mean, if he means it by that, I could see what he's getting at. But if he means it via the CFL, there's records broken all the time in the CFL. Like I say, I'll agree with him, but I'll disagree with him in another way. So, Trey?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think you need, again, I don't think you need records being broke, because, like, who actually thought Ovi was going to break Gretzky's?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even know. That snuck up on me this year. And, like, Aaron Judge didn't break the MLB, but he broke the American League home run a couple of years ago. So, like, I mean, but, you know, a lot of these, like, no one's going to beat Barry Bonds because it's different. No one's roided up. You know, I don't think anyone is going to beat Antonio Calvillo because no quarterback plays that consistent. They don't start as early anymore in the CFL and play that long. Like, it, you know, the level of guys, you know, how many guys under 28 do we really have starting in the CFL? So you can't break those records. So,
Yeah.
but doesn't mean that I don't think Bo Levi, I mean, I guess he played for a while, but doesn't mean like Caleros, who's had 3 concussions and missed how many years, he's a great player, but he's never going to get the records because he's not played enough. And I guess maybe that is a definition of superstar, but I don't know. I think it was really stupid thing to say. And as like somewhat of a boss, he just told 44 employees that you guys aren't superstars. You know, like, you'll never be a superstar. And I mean, I'm sure we've all had a boss who said some stupid backhanded comment like that before, and it's like, oh man, I got to clock in for this asshole now. You know, I think that maybe you got some guys on even the Elks who are going to be like, well, let's prove our boss wrong.
Yeah.
And you definitely have guys on 8 other teams that now have bulletin board material too, including Eugene Lewis. And I think in football, in any sport, you should never give the opponent's bulletin board material. We've seen that, like what happened after the ice cream comment, you know, what happened after different comments, right? So, you know, I think it was just dumb, and I hope Calgary just roasts the crap out of him over Labor Day with something, you know. And I agree. I don't think the CFL will, because that kind of throws one of their own under the bus. But yeah, I would love the like really hitting the superstar comments on social media for the next 9 months.
You know there's going to be some Eugene Lewis touchdown celebration if it's against Edmonton with something like that. You made a very good point, though, about the Elks team themselves, and the employees underneath Ed Hervey that I had not considered earlier in terms of like, not great to see those comments from your boss, especially after signing a long-term deal with this team potentially, but bulletin board material perhaps. Speaking of, stars and superstars in the CFL, the BC Lions tried to load up with some of them down the stretch of last season to the extent of going over the cap by $347,889. last season. They were one of, I believe, 4 teams to go over the cap. Toronto went over by 87,000. Saskatchewan went over by 40K, and Ottawa went over by 22. Now, once again, the CFL has a soft cap. You can go over it. You're just going to get a penalty for it, and I feel like this might be the biggest we've seen a team go over the cap in a long time, because they have quite the interesting penalty rules that I didn't really understand, and I still don't understand. So you guys can maybe explain it to me. But as a result of this, the CFL has taken away the BC Lions' first and second round draft picks in the 2025 CFL draft coming up in a couple of weeks. And instead of just naturally shifting everything up the board, which is the logical thing to do, for some reason, the Calgary Stampeders, who had the worst record in the league, get both of their draft picks, both the first and the second round picks, just go to Calgary because BC spent too far over the cap. So congrats, Calgary. You get 2 extra draft picks out of this. That's pretty sweet for you. This is bizarre, right?
Strangest rule I've ever seen. I mean, yeah, I get it that you want to try to reward or try to help the bottom teams out to make them a little better by going in, but by punishing a team that had a West semifinal appearance and that's it. That severely. I mean, I get it. Rules are rules, but just move everybody up. Don't give extra picks to other teams. I mean, it just seemed very strange to do. Also, I think it's dollar for dollar fine as well, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken. So Amar Dolman has got a big bill to pay to the CFL now, which is going to be entertaining. I guess the CFL is flushing money now. Thank you, BC. But yeah, very interesting rule, that's for sure. And I mean, I know BC wasn't the only team to go over the rules. Saskatchewan did it by 40 grand, I think. Ottawa was over. Toronto was over. But they weren't over enough to make it where they have to start losing draft picks. Just a very strange rule.
You actually get double the amounts. According to the article I found from 3 Down Nation, the Lions are paying $643,667 to the CFL and all of that.
That's like almost half of their cap, isn't it?
Well, it's not great. There's more to this, by the way. Not only do the draft picks go to Calgary, but they move to the end of their respective rounds for some reason. So the Lions had the 3rd overall pick. Now Calgary gets that pick at 8th overall. So it shifts everything around on the board. And then also reading this straight from the 3 Down Nation article, Calgary has also been awarded BC's first second round pick, which the team acquired from Calgary in the Vernon Adams trade, though it's also been moved to the end of the round. So I guess they traded a second round pick to the rights for Vernon Adams Jr., but now they get the second round pick back because BC went over the cap. But for some reason, BC was allowed to keep their second round pick at number 12 overall. Yeah, I don't know. I'm confused as heck by these rules. It just seems weird to give them to Calgary.
I'm going to only disagree, because if you just move everything up, that ultimately means 2 less people are drafted. If they're just straight voided.
You could put them at the end of the draft.
Sure, you could have done that, sure. But this is probably just to say, hey, guess what? You screw around, some team's getting a first and a second. It was probably some stiff penalty they put in the 80s and 90s or 2000s or something, when teams like the Argos were signing Ricky Williams to whatever and trying to get some guys in and maybe saying, hey, let's not do that. If you do, you want to get some American player in for a crazy amount of money, you're not getting your first round draft pick next year. I think that's very fair. And not only that, one of your worst enemies could get it. If you know what I mean. If you know the rule, don't break it. You know what I mean? Don't be like, oh, we broke it, and then be like all shocked that, oh, I kill someone, I get the electric chair. Like, don't, what, you did the crime. And I think I have no problem with teams going over, because we talk about first round draft picks. Who did BC ultimately is not losing anybody. They're giving a pick back to Calgary, which is kind of weird. I guess Calgary got Vernon Adams for a little bit cheaper now, but still, like, was BC really going to keep Vernon Adams and Nathan Rourke with probably go over the salary cap 300,000 again? So, I mean, ultimately, it is what it is, and I think it's just funny that you couldn't even win the cup going over by 300,000, and I was actually just more surprised Winnipeg wasn't over it because they have been for years. But I jokingly said they probably didn't have to pay out Grey Cup winning bonuses, so that's why they were under.
Well, they were 25,000 over, but
oh, were they? I thought they were. No, I didn't think. Oh, were they? I thought the Bombers weren't this year.
no, they were 25K over, just by a little bit, but
still, but not as bad as bad as it could have been. So
I'm taking a look at the draft order right now here on CFL.ca. This is from 8 days ago, but they still haven't said that BC's lost their second round draft picks. They also got a bonus pick because of the national snaps bonus. What in the world? And the other thing also is, if you're going to punish a team for all of this stuff, why wouldn't you punish them in the global draft? I mean, you can only get so many global players. Shouldn't you also take away the first round, fourth overall pick in the global draft?
See, I just want chaos. So, and what great ways to market the league in April or whatever. Instead of just giving them to Calgary, put those 2 draft picks in a big draft lottery, spin the wheel, have a night to go and grant those to the other teams, and whoever wins the lottery gets their bonus picks.
I'll say no. I think you got to give them to the worst team because they have the biggest argument to say, hey, we were affected by the competitive unbalance. You know what I mean? Like, they were the most affected by the competitive unbalance. I know it's barely anything, but that's the only way I think you make it work, because you can't go and give them a random draft, because what if Toronto gets them? Then the Grey Cup champ gets these extra picks. They weren't hurt by the competitive unbalance of BC going 300,000 over, right? Like, yeah, I think that's the only way you can fairly do it, unless, like you said, maybe put them at the end. But I don't. I don't think that's really hurting anything. Then, like, I think this is it. BC learned. Hey, guess what? We go over 300,000. A team in our division who got our backup quarterback, our starting quarterback, has improved. Now gets our draft picks. We better watch it this year.
But at the end of the day, if I was BC, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would not do it the way they did it. But I think they were in a little bit of a tough spot of Rourke being a great option for the future, but having VA playing at the level he did. Like, we talked endlessly down the stretch of the season as the team kind of spiraled a little bit, that it was the locker room dynamics of, how do they manage the quarterback situation? I think both quarterbacks talked about that a little bit being a distraction for the team, but I also don't know, what are you going to do? Just let Rourke go to somebody else in that? Probably not. Like, it looks like a colossal failure in hindsight by the fact that this team didn't even make it out of they made the playoffs, right? Just not out of the first round, I believe, of the playoffs. So, that's a failure in hindsight to go this much over, but do it in a heartbeat. And Adam, you were talking about that bonus second round pick or whatever for having top 2 teams with the most Canadian snaps. Spend extra money on the Canadians so you get more snaps. You forfeit a second round pick, you get one back anyways, right? So, it's a soft cap. I've always advocated for teams should spend over the cap. Every team should be trying to spend as much as they can over the cap. That's within reason for them.
I would just change it, get rid of the draft pick penalty, and just do the 2 for $1 thing. That's it. That's what most leagues have that have soft caps, right? Like, it's some kind of luxury tax, and that money goes towards the league or goes towards teams like the smaller market teams or the team, something, whatever the other leagues do, right? I'm pretty sure the NFL or baseball, that overspending money that fine goes to the smaller market teams to help pay for, like, Tampa Bay's new stadium that they need to build and stuff like that in MLB, right? So do that. Maybe if we pay these fines, hey, guess what? If $600,000 fine, why don't we have a 10th team? Like, that would be, very good startup money somewhere. So I think the teams need to spend more. And Bombers making $7 million, man, they would have made 9 if they didn't blow $2 million on the soccer team that doesn't win. But yeah, there's money. There's money in the CFL. That's why I don't understand. If the Bombers make 7, I know not every team can do that, and that was like overall operations, but the blueprint is there. So Winnipeg is not crazy. Yeah, the Jets' attendance is down roughly, but now they're going to be in the playoffs. And guess what? Probably people after June are not going to want to go to too many Bomber games if they're spending, $300, $400, $500 on a deep playoff run in hockey, right? So it's
don't worry,
interesting.
my Avalanche will fix that problem for you guys.
This is the time of the year I jump on the bandwagon and say I'm the biggest Jets fan ever, and I've been telling you guys for years that they're going to go and win the cup, and yeah.
It's funny because I do the same thing.
Hellebuck will take his vacation in the playoffs like he always does. It's all good. By the way, Landeskog's coming back. Just thought I'd let you know.
I see a chat comment asking if we talked about the new commissioner for about the first half hour of the show. So go back and check that out after the fact. Lots of good conversation there. And apparently Bigfoot's Canadian, and he claims he's seen the Canadian Football Countdown live on Twitch. It's unbelievable.
Cool. It'd be national, I guess.
There we go. We have a viewer.
Yeah. The other one also, Brandon, I've seen you put in a lot of Saskatchewan comments. Don't worry. We'll have a season preview for the Rough Riders, and we'll be talking all about the Rough Riders that day whenever we get to it. So,
will the Riders beat the Bombers 5 times this year? I doubt it.
Pretty tough. You have to beat them 6 times,
team.
probably because of playoffs. But yeah,
you can have the 2 preseason ones, Adam.
Well, thank you.
Do they play each other twice in the preseason?
Yep, back to back. Almost every team plays back to back, I thought.
Well, that's dumb.
I think they have that with almost every team though this year.
Yeah, I think most teams play back to back with like a team that's pretty close to them geographically.
All right. Well, I guess that's a thing. We were talking about the draft picks and the forfeiting of draft picks. One of the things that I've seen spreading around a lot on social media this week, as I've kind of started to dive back into some CFL stuff, is everybody talking about, BC has to forfeit their picks, but the first overall pick in the CFL draft has not been very successful over the last 10 years. I pulled up the Wikipedia page for it. Let me rattle them off here for you guys. 2024, Joel DeBlanco, linebacker for the Edmonton Elks. To be fair, the newer guys, they still have time to develop. But Dante Bull, offensive lineman for the Red Blacks in 2023. Tyrell Richards at linebacker to the Alouettes. I think that one wasn't too bad. I think Richards had some success. No? Some injury problems, I think, have been...
Yeah, more injury issues, I think.
In 2021, the Ticats drafted Jake Burt at tight end first overall. That didn't work out well for them. Jordan Williams, linebacker, drafted by the BC Lions, I believe, is retired now after, I think he went to Toronto.
Retired.
Yeah. Shane Richards was drafted first overall by the Argos in 2019. That one was okay, I think. Mark Chapman at wide receiver for the Ticats in 2018. That did not go well. The Bombers had the first overall pick in 2017. Faith Akakity did not last very long in the Winnipeg organization.
Did he even play a game?
I think so.
Oh, I thought I thought he didn't come here the first year, and then I didn't know if he played or not.
According to Wikipedia, he dressed for 14 regular season games in his rookie season and contributed only 5 tackles and was released the year after and went on to Montreal the year after and played a little bit, but then tore his Achilles.
Oh, okay.
Josiah St. John in 2016 to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Was that one a hit, Adam?
No comment.
Alex Mateus. Ask Edmonton, indeed. Alex Mateus for the Ottawa Red Blacks offensive lineman in 2015. Pierre Laverdeau in 2014 for the Calgary Stampeders. So, just based on her reactions of these, not great. Now, that's not necessarily a mark on the CFL draft as a whole. There have been some very good players, Canadian players, to come out of the CFL draft. It just seems like the first overall pick is never a success. And I'd be interested to see, and I probably can't look this up on Wikipedia to then look at who's been drafted second overall in the last 10 years, who's been drafted third overall. I'd have to actually put effort in to go and combine all of that together, and I don't really want to do that right now. But yeah, why is the first overall pick just a flop generally?
Name me a league where the first overall pick is better than not. You know what I mean? There's not one. How did Patrick Mahomes go 12th? or whatever, and Allen and Josh Allen go like lower, and where's Mazzell and where's trying to think of hockey ones. There's a few hockey. Edmonton had like 3 in a row, and only McDavid is really the only one that panned out, right? Where's Line A? I know he was number 1, but he was number 2. You know what I mean? Where maybe
not bad in Montreal.
Yeah, that's fair. But like, what number 1 baseball? Aaron Judge was like a 13th round draft pick, I thought. You know what I mean? Like, the draft is not. I don't know. The first overall, maybe basketball's the only one because there's only is 2 rounds in basketball that you kind of get some better guys. But even them, most of them are like, I don't know. The draft to me is like a race for 2-year-old horses. You never know what you're going to get. And I'm amazed that we do it because, like, you put a bunch of 2-year-olds in a race, you don't know what's going to happen. You're lucky that they just get around the track in one piece, honestly, half the time. And that's what I feel like draft picks are. These guys are 22, 23. They played against kids their own age. You don't know what they're going to get. And you get the most talented guy in college and it cannot work out. And you can get some guy who's played NCAA, and it's a completely different game, right, Adam?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And again, you never know. You got to be, this is where scouts are amazing, how they can figure out how a guy is going to be, how he's going to react, and for the most part, know what's kind of going to go on. The thing is, when you got the number 1 overall pick on something, that guy gets hyped, whoever it is. Remember Nail Yakupov?
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't end so well. There's other ones that I can name you. Nolan Patrick, for example. Good player, a good guy, but just never worked out. But the hype was there, and people thought this is going to be the next great thing, and this is going to be the next great guy. In the CFL, I can almost bet you that Curtis Rourke is one of those guys right now. He's going to be exciting. He wants to be out there, and people are going to get the hype train. And the GMs get hyped about guys. They hear about these guys, and they start to drool, and they think, this is going to be my best guy. But the scouts are looking at papers and looking at analytics, and they're looking at all the boring things that maybe aren't so exciting for a fan, but they're looking at things that end up becoming the next Rob Bagg or the next Sam Emilus, or all of those picks that aren't the first overall pick, but they're great picks in the end. I think that there's going to be some, again, good pickups this year in the 5th, the 6th, the 7th round picks. I know that they did, for example, there's a no-name came off from the University of Saskatchewan that all of a sudden looks really good. But this is where I think that the CFL fails everybody so much, by us not being able to see the actual combine and see some of these players and see what they look like. Because if you see some of that, then you get the hype about it. And hey, you never know, maybe the first overall pick still is going to be overhyped and maybe won't do nothing. But yeah, you're right, Ryan. The first overall pick in the CFL, honestly, if somebody would give me 3 number 2 picks for the first overall pick, I'd give them the first overall pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a reason we do a big free agency show every year. And there's a reason we don't even try to do a big draft show necessarily. We might do a draft preview, a draft recap. It's just that we don't know enough about these guys, right? Like I try to do research every year to coming into our draft preview, and I just have a hard time getting the proper research without just regurgitating what other more qualified people are doing for their coverage for it. And so I would love to see more accessible information, or if it is out there, if somebody point me towards it on the draft stuff, because I'd like to learn about these guys of tomorrow. I said I wasn't going to put in the effort, but I did. While Adam was talking, I pulled up the draft results from the last 10 or so years. And notable players, I'll say drafted in the first round. I'll just pick a couple from each year to show that, yeah, there have been some impactful players go early in the draft, even if first overall doesn't work out. Two that come to mind last year, Nick Mardner at wide receiver for Ottawa. Kevin Mytel had the big catch. I believe he had a touchdown in the Grey Cup for the Argos. Made an impact there. 2023. It's kind of a mix there. Lake Corte Moore, I think, is probably the most successful among them. Cole Tucker has unfortunately retired. Lowell Uguak for the Alouettes, who I think went off to the NFL and came back. Like, there's some notable names there. 2022, Jalen Philpott, Samuel Emelis, Trey Ford, Tyson Philpott. That's a pretty stacked group of 4 drafted in the late first round there. This is taking too long, so I'm not going to go back all the years. Everybody can look it up. But, there are some pretty notable players that do get drafted in the first round of the CFL draft.
The CFL is a tough one, too, because, like, you're not – if he told you he was coming here, I'm sure teams would burn their first-round pick for Curtis Rourke. But it's also do you risk it on a guy who might never come north? Like, are you going to risk it on a guy who might sit 3 or 4 years in training camp and PR or practice rosters in the NFL? It's kind of like the negotiation list. Like, Saskatchewan risked the spot for Trey Lance, and then he signed in LA, and it sounded, didn't really lose anything, but I doubt he's coming to Saskatchewan now, right? So it's I think the CFL draft is the hardest. Football would be one of the hardest, and CFL is the hardest of the hardest because, again, there's so many guys now in the NCAA, and it's almost a different game. You got different guys in in CIS, and again, you're playing against 18 to 22-year-olds. How is that going to compare against if you're blocking a guy who's 22 now, next year you're blocking Willie Jefferson? It's a little different. It's harder to compare. You get different sports are a little bit different. Baseball, you're in the minor leagues for 8 years. You learn how to play. Hockey, a lot of the Europeans play in men's leagues up until they're drafted. So I don't know. The CFL draft's interesting, and like Adam say, I wouldn't want the first overall pick. I'd pull the Ryan and pick later in the draft.
That's
honestly,
and get that snake draft.
Yeah, let you guys just fight over the overhype train. I'll take the guy who's probably a solid 10th overall pick, and build there.
Well, and it's interesting to see much more like. I feel like there's much less room for success for a draft pick in the CFL, perhaps compared to other leagues. And I know the ratio kind of helps them have that opportunity for dedicated spots. But like I take a look at CFL versus say the NHL, two sports I'm most familiar with. NHL, you don't have these, camps down like in other places to find guys. Like the CFL often does these camps down in, Florida, for example, to recruit American players to come take spots where like NHL, most, if not all of your players are coming up through the draft. So you get drafted, you got a good shot of ending up on an NHL, AHL roster, for example. We've got 8 rounds of draft picks every single year for the CFL, where I think some of these guys, might just not stand out enough to earn them that roster spot. And I think the ratio gives them more opportunities there, but I think that's why sometimes we see that maybe lack of success. A football career generally is pretty short, and it can be tough sometimes to get into a starting role.
Yeah, and if you look at the NHL, they're drafted early, right? They're drafted almost out of high school, essentially. In the CFL or the NFL, they've already been 4 years of college or more, maybe sometimes, depends what's going on. But they're more different players at that point than they are in the NHL. NHL, again, these guys are scouted so carefully and watched when they're 12, 13, 14 years old to see what they're going to become. They're looking in, like I said before, even major juniors. So it's very interesting to see the difference. But in the CFL, again, you maybe only have 4 years worth of film on somebody. Maybe that was their first 4 years that they've ever played football, right? Some guys in high school maybe played 1-2 years of football. Then they go on and play 3-4 years of NCAA or CIS. And all of a sudden, that's all you got, right? It's quite a little bit less time to go and evaluate players, maybe a little bit more than, let's say, the NHL, where, again, these guys are playing in winter and they're playing in spring leagues and they're playing all sorts of hockey that you've got a lot of games that you're watching versus the NFL, CFL, where you're not watching so much, maybe a bit of why that first overall pick sometimes could be a little bit questionable.
Well, we'll see what happens with this year's draft in a couple of weeks here. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we get into wrapping up the show? You want to tell us anything about the UFL? You've been watching that, I hear, Trey?
Oh, the only thing I want to say is Alex Mago is an absolute donkey, and he should never put on a jersey for the Birmingham Stallions.
I thought he was getting picked up by the Bombers here for the offseason.
I actually would pick up the guy that is starting for them now, Matt Corral. But no, Alex Mago. He's on the injured list right now, and I wish him the best. But I was surprised that he was a starter. What did he go? 13 for 30 almost his first game with a pick and no touchdowns, 80 yards rushing and 80 yards passing because he was running the ball because he couldn't throw it downfield. And then, the next game he gets hurt after the first throw. Matt Corral comes in and leads them to their first victory of the year. So I think, I'm not right too often, but I think that my preseason preview is like Matt Corral could be the best quarterback in the league this year. So why are we putting him on the bench? But yeah, donkey of the game, man. That was so fun. I hope one of the players reads it. That's all I want, is one of the players to read it and be like, "Who's this guy calling me a donkey?"
Well, we'll do our full plugs here shortly, but while we're talking about it, where can people find your writing about the UFL?
You can find everything. Well, you can find at the AFN. You can find that at the Alternative Football Network. They post that stuff all the time. Or at my handle at Trey MB Harness. Still got tons of horse racing, boys. I might have a new job, but it's still horse racing 24/7 on the old X page. I'll probably be tweeting some UFC this weekend. Big 314 card. What else? My Masters, I picked Corey Connors to win, and he did pretty good on day one today. So hopefully we'll see how that goes at Trey and B Harness. Adam, where can people find you and all what you got going on?
You can find me at Adam Stewart 1 over on the X. Most times I don't really even talk on there very much anymore because somebody will interpret it wrong, and I don't want that to happen. So, being a nice guy, I don't really post a whole lot of stuff on there. But if you do look on Instagram, it's getting to that point of the year where I'm going to start going and playing around with farm equipment. So be sure to go and follow me over at Farmer in Sask over on the Instagram page. You'll be able to see all sorts of cool little things we've got going on there. I probably got some pictures of calves and all on there right now too. So yeah, take a look, see what you see. Won't be posting anything about hockey because that's kind of done for me for the season. Although, NHL's coming up. So definitely going to be probably making a little bit of talking about the Avalanche as the playoffs go along. But yeah, take a look at me all in there. Ryan, where can people find everything that you're doing?
Well, first of all, when you say that on your Instagram, people can find pictures of calves, we'll leave it up to the imagination whether these are baby cows or your own calves. Go check out Adam's Instagram. I don't know. That's just the first thing that came to mind when you said calves. I thought about like the part of your leg.
All right then.
It's bedtime, Ryan.
Go check out everything.
I'm just sad that you guys didn't get the Smash Mouth try that I made at the beginning of the show.
I did.
Oh, I just tuned you out, Adam.
I would too.
I've got nothing important going on, so just check out whatever these guys just mentioned. But in terms of the podcast stuff, you can find us on social media at CF Countdown Pod on X, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Follow us on or subscribe on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@CF Countdown Pod. If you watched this episode on X, this will probably be the last episode you can watch live on X because our premium subscription that we got for the live show ends tomorrow, and I'm not paying Elon more money. So yeah, that account's going. I mean, the account will still there; it just won't be premium, so we can't stream live there. So subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can catch us here, which is the better place to catch the show. What else do I normally mention here? You can check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network as well at CF Pod Network on Twitter and the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN or alternativefootballnetwork.com. You can find all of Trey's writing there about the Birmingham Stallions as well. Check out the Discord, links in the episode description. It's free to join us over there. In terms of me, don't find me on social media. There's no benefit really in doing so. But check out all the podcast stuff. We'll hopefully get back into more of a regular routine here over the next little while. This was fun to catch up. I enjoyed chatting with you guys about everything from the last couple of months, and we'll keep doing it here marching onwards towards CFL season. hopefully we'll bring our top 5 segment back again over the next couple of weeks. That's always the most fun, highly contested and debated part of the show.
Yeah, and just wanted to mention also to all of our guys that were watching the show tonight, make sure you share it to your friends and everything else. We want to input with you guys a little bit more this year. So if you have comments or such, we'll try to read them off as we go. And we'll try to get to some of them again when sometimes when we're talking about one thing, it's hard to switch immediately to gears. So just be aware of that. But overall, hey, we want to make sure that we're talking about what you want to talk about. So if you got comments or you got stuff, put them in there. We always read them over. We take a good look at them. We have some laughs with you guys as well. Of course, with Bigfoot comments tonight. That was pretty funny. But yeah, no, honestly, we do it for the fans. So, hey, you know what? If you guys have any input or anything, hey, put it in the comments.
Absolutely. Well, said it better than I could have. On that note, whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do that, along with the other fun things such as subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. I guess you already mentioned that one. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. And on behalf of Adam and Trey, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.